Hello everybody, I'm up to the West Ham. My YouTube channel is the Predicted 11 for West Ham United versus Tottenham Hotspur. Yes, it is a big game tomorrow. It is, of course, the London derby at the London Stadium. I'm massively looking forward to it. I think West Ham have a genuine chance in this game to get 3 points. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that you can discount Tottenham Hotspur with a plethora of attacking talent that we know they have. Kane's back in, Son's back in, Gareth Bale scored midweek, and Ndombele have got some fantastic players. But I genuinely feel that West Ham, it's a good opportunity for us to take a game to a supposed Big Six side and really cement our place in fifth. And I think we've got the players. I think we've got the tactics. It's about Moyes understanding that if we put pressure on Tottenham and force them back in that defensive shape, that we can get a result here and we can create chances. It couldn't be easy, particularly possibly with Mickey Antonio missing out, but you feel that West Ham have got enough in an attacking sense, enough from set pieces to hurt them. So I'm going to start with West Ham. Obviously in goal, Lucas Fabianski. No surprises here. Again, I expect him to be called upon at times in this game. I think this is the danger of Tottenham Hotspur, generally speaking, the fact that they don't look like they can break down teams. There's a lot of lateral passing. They need to use width, and they might not get it from their fullbacks in this game. But in transition, they're absolutely lethal. The likes of Heung-min Son and Harry Kane, you can't afford them to get a chance. And one thing I've seen from Tottenham Hotspur, if they're able to break that defensive line of West Ham and West Ham possibly press a little bit too far out, that they will get shots on target. I think Lucas is going to be called upon at times in this game. I expect West Ham to employ a little bit of a low block. He's going to get protection, particularly from wide areas. So you'd hope that he isn't called upon too many times, but he needs to be massively concentrated in terms of if Tottenham do break those defensive lines, that he's ready and raring to go. Right, wing-back will be Vladimir Coufal for me. Seen a few calls talking about him possibly coming right-sided centre-back. I don't think he will. I actually think that the way Tottenham play in possession will benefit this West Ham backline. There isn't too many runners looking to get him beyond, and like I've touched on, the fact that there aren't too many players that are willing to play in between the lines or in fact find positions between the lines. It means that it can be a lot easier for West Ham to have a lot in front of them. In terms of Coufal down that left-hand side, he's going to have to deal with Heung-min Son. Now, last time out, as we were very well aware, he cut in on Fabian Balbuena and he scored very early on. And I think we need to force Tottenham as far back as possible in this game. I think the low block does achieve that. I'm not saying being negative and sit behind the ball for 90 minutes, but it does frustrate Tottenham a little bit. Forcing players like Heung-min Son, who, albeit is very good in transition and very good in trying to get in behind, will find it frustrating in picking up the ball in deep areas, and Tottenham invariably rely on the likes of Harry Kane to do that. So I think Coufal is going to have to be switched on. You look at the left-hand side, particularly for the fullback in Ben Davies, who I will believe play ahead of Sergio Reguilon due to his injury. I think we've got enough to deal with them. I think a lot of Tottenham's play is going to be central. I think in an attacking sense, though, I want West Ham to create overloads in wide areas. The wing-back system gives us this advantage. We can get in behind the likes of Ben Davies, Tanganga possibly on that right-hand side as well. Create the overloads and allow some of our central players to come in. And what I will touch on in the tactical breakdown is the fact that Spurs are asked to press individually and they rely on those pivots to sit in between the lines and protect that defence. And if West Ham can commit enough men forward, like the likes of Coufal, then we are going to create chances and we are going to cause some issues. And they've looked a little bit shaky. They have conceded goals over the past few weeks as well, Tottenham. So I'd like to see Coufal in an advanced position. The only thing I would say is in terms of that attacking intent, in terms of that delivery into the box, West Ham are going to lack that height. So unless West Ham force the likes of Souček a little bit further forward, take a risk, play almost a back three at times with Declan Rice as that pivot, then really and truthfully, it's going to be hard for West Ham to get balls in the box and hurt Tottenham. But I guess from open play, I guess with that fluid front three that we've spoken about and their intention to get in behind, we will create space for ourselves, but we have to work to our strengths in this game. Right-sided centre-back for me will be Issa Diop. Again, he didn't have a great first half. I think it's always harsh to say things like that because obviously he did score that goal in the second and it was a great header. I feel Issa Diop grows into games. He grew into the Crystal Palace game earlier on in the season, second half, exactly the same against Sheffield United. I think he's going to need protection from someone like Coufal. You know, Tottenham will play centrally, possibly if they push Ndombele further up. And I haven't quite seen enough of Tottenham to understand how they're going to use Ndombele in a pivot role. But he's the player that can carry the ball, that can create things, that can get passes in behind. So he's going to need protection from that sense. Like I touched on earlier as well, the fact that Ben Davies isn't going to advance as high as someone like a Sergio Reguilon, given the fact that he lacks that athleticism that Sergio does. it will protect Issa Diop in this game, but he has to be switched on. I need him to be composed in possession. You also need him to be decisive as well. You cannot afford to make a mistake against this Tottenham lineup, because if they can break that defensive line, they're given a lot of freedom to get in behind, and they've got the ability and the quality to do so. So for me, Diop has to be disciplined in this game. I think it will be better for him with a lot of the play in front of him. I think that's where he thrives, but he's got to be decisive when he has those one-on-ones, particularly with Heung-min Son down that left-hand side. Centre-back will be Craig Dawson, the main centre-back. Again, like I touched on, I think the issue will be Harry Kane and Heung-min Son's movement. I've touched on Heung-min Son coming off the left-hand side. He does when Tottenham have the ball in the build-up, but equally, I think when they're in that final third, Heung-min Son's remit is to get in beyond and play it on the shoulder, play it almost as that number 9 with Harry Kane dropping deep. And I think that is something that Dawson and the entire back three need to be aware of, because Heung-min Son, like I touched on, albeit probably not the best player to break down in terms of one-on-one, can get in behind. And you feel that if Harry Kane can get a bit of space in that final third and find Heung-min Son, then there's some issues. But I think because a lot of the plays in front of West Ham in this game, you'd feel that it would benefit somebody like a Dawson. I think a lot of it's to do with organisation as well. West Ham's trying to sit back as well as a back three when Tottenham break that line and do so quickly. I've seen enough from West Ham this season to suggest that we have adapted to that system a lot better, and I expect us to sit in a little bit and deal with those crosses and deliveries. But Tottenham aren't necessarily going to create overloads in this game. They will rely on a few attacking players. You feel that West Ham can nullify a lot of their play in the wide areas as well. Left-sided centre-back will be Aaron Creswell. For me, really, really important if West Ham can commit him forward in that left centre-back position. We've got a little bit of solidity now with Ben Johnson down that left-hand side. I think we saw it against Sheffield United. Aaron Creswell progressed into the halfway line and using his delivery to get in behind defences. And ultimately, you feel against Spurs, even with the likes of Jesse Lingard, who did prove a lot of athleticism, proved a lot of intelligence in playing between the lines, we can stretch that Tottenham back three. Particularly if Tottenham have the ball. They'll push up the two pivots in Højbjerg and Ndombele. They'll try and squeeze the play, but there'll be a lot of space between that midfield and that defence. And given the fact that Mourinho's asking his defenders to go and press individually, and that a lot of that system relies on the pivots to sit in between the lines, it means West Ham can create overloads in the final third. And somebody like an Aaron Creswell, if West Ham can advance very, very quickly in transition and get the ball to a Sai Benrahma or a Jesse Lingard down that side, we can exploit the spaces that they'll inevitably leave. Equally, the fact that there's a lack of mobility in that Tottenham defence. You look at Sanchez, Eric Dyer. Again, they struggle. If they're going to make that press, they need to be successful in it. And I'm not convinced that this Tottenham backline has that ability to do so, particularly with injuries to Aurier and Reguilon. Left wing back will be Ben Johnson. Again, super impressed with this man since he's coming to the West Ham side. I think we all know his talent and his ability. His composure on the ball is phenomenal. I think his one-to-one defending is fantastic. Right-hand side will be an interesting one for me. I think Gareth Bale's going to start there. And like I touched on a little bit with the fullbacks, I'm not going to imagine that Tanganga is going to get as far forward as a Doherty or an Aurier. So a lot of the play will be coming central. It'd be interesting to see how West Ham deal with him. Maybe we have enough with that pivot system that we employ. But equally, you look at someone like a Ben Johnson in transition, his composure, his willingness to get forward, to break the lines. If West Ham can break that Tottenham front four press that sometimes they employ when they've got possession, then there'll be space in behind that midfield. And I think Ben Johnson is the guy to carry the ball over long distances. If West Ham can force him a little bit further forward, very, very similar to Soufal, and we can get our forward three and try and isolate those sort of back two, back three at times for Tottenham, again, we've got a really, really good chance from open play. I think that's where West Ham's key threat in this game lies. Deliveries, we've taken away from them. I still think we get that threat from set pieces, but open play, we're going to rely on this wing-back system. This is why, personally, I prefer it. I think the 4-2-3-1 works in terms of an attacking intent. West Ham have to press a little bit higher. It does mean that we can play a low block, we can frustrate teams, and equally we can carry the ball using width that Tottenham really, really struggle to defend against. And I'll touch on it in the tactical breakdown. I'm not going to take too much away from this predicted 11, but they are a very interesting, almost disjointed side at times. Midfield for West Ham, no surprises here. There's going to be Declan Rice probably on that right-hand side for West Ham. Again, I think a lot of the play, particularly with Harry Kane, if we can nullify Harry Kane in this game and the positional fluidity that is given by someone like a Jose Mourinho, then you can frustrate Tottenham. And it's interesting to see Harry Kane playing those deep areas and trying to pick the ball up and trying to make things happen, probably because Spurs have an unwillingness to play through the lines. I've only really seen Højbjerg as the guy. I think they've put Ndombele in that system because he's the guy that's willing to run with the ball and play between the lines. Tottenham really struggle to break down teams in that low block, and Declan Rice is another factor in this. Can he frustrate Harry Kane? Can we force Heung-min Son a little bit deeper in those areas that he can't hurt us? Lucas Moura is going to play in that 10 role, so potentially there is the possibility of an overload. But again, you feel that West Ham, particularly with the press from the front three, if we can prevent Tottenham from trying to play through the lines, and I know they're a little bit hesitant to do so, but prevent them from doing it, then again, it should be a relatively simple task for Declan Rice in the defensive sense. I wouldn't ask someone like Declan to transition with the ball. And I think this is a difference in the wing-back system. I don't think we need Declan in a defensive shape to carry the ball over long distances, because then you are opening up that space just in front of that back three where someone like a Harry Kane can operate. So I expect us to see him a little bit more in a defensive shape, in a more of a pivot role, and I think that's where he's best. Thomas Souček, again, it's an interesting one, isn't it, with Souček? We know his defensive attributes, but going forward, he's absolutely phenomenal. And I don't believe Tottenham can hurt us as much in transition as people make out that they can. I think they take away Harry Kane, particularly in transition, get him to drop deeper, and they rely on Heung-min Son in order to do so. If they can introduce Gareth Bale, Lucas Moura into the fold, and obviously Heung-min Son, then maybe they can hurt West Ham if they can isolate it to a back three only. And West Ham very, very rarely play that risky strategy when it's just the back three isolated. We can go to about five. We've got the protection there. So I think if West Ham do have possession on someone like Tottenham, the risk isn't as high as it is with other teams. And we'll probably see that next week with Manchester City. Thomas Souček in this game and West Ham in this game have the ability to progress the wing-backs and push him into the box alongside a Jesse Lingard, possibly even a Jarrod Bowen as well, and break that line and take advantage of the fact that Tottenham want to individually press. And if you break him out of position and you can force someone like a Thomas Souček forward, he will get space in the box, he will get space, he will get time, and we will hurt Tottenham Hotspur. That's exactly how West Ham need to do it from open play. I don't need to speak about him from set pieces because he's absolutely always a threat. I'm interested to see how West Ham can hurt Tottenham there, but they're a little bit of a vulnerability. Tottenham generally can't deal when you progress a number 8 in and behind. We saw it a little bit with Gundogan last week as well. They struggle because they rely on those pivots to sit in. West Ham break very, very quickly on transition. Thomas Souček is another element of West Ham's attacking play that can definitely hurt Spurs. From an attacking sense, I think we're going to see obviously the front three. I'd go down the left-hand side, Benrahma for me. No surprises. I was a bit disappointed that he didn't play against Sheffield United, albeit I feel like Manu Lanzini had a very, very good game. I want him in this game because I feel like one-on-one he can possibly beat Tanganga. And I think if he beats Tanganga, then you're asking someone like an Eric Dyer or a Davinson Sanchez to go and press and vacate that space in behind. And West Ham can progress that midfield like I touched on with Thomas Souček. And you feel that Benrahma is the guy to do it. Equally, I think with Tottenham as well, if West Ham put on enough of a press, and it is a risky strategy, and I'm not sure whether someone like David Moyes would do it, but I feel like he possibly has learnt his lesson, then you are going to ask Højbjerg to sit in between the centre-backs at times to create a very, very central, narrow block. And I think you're taking away a pivot from there, you're allowing space in front of that back four. The way that Tottenham employ, particularly with their wide attacking midfield players, they're not necessarily going to sit deep and central, possibly like Mourinho wants them to. So someone like a Said Benrahma, where he can operate in those central areas, where Ben Johnson's progressed a little bit more to give Tottenham something to think about, to allow them to squeeze the play a bit more, then Benrahma's going to be able to influence things. And that's where I think West Ham are going to create the spaces. But you have to give willing runners in beyond Benrahma. You can't just allow Benrahma or sit in a low block. This is why West Ham have to force numbers forward to give Tottenham things to work on. And listen, I think Benrahma's been really, really good this season. I've been super impressed when he's come on. His work rate's invariably hard. I think that's also something that I'll touch on in the tactical breakdown. The fact that Benrahma, Lingard and Bowen will try and press that Tottenham defence that split the two centre-backs, and Højbjerg sits, or possibly if there's a Ndombele playing in there, he'll sit. We can prevent Tottenham from getting into possession and trying to play through the lines and possibly create turnovers higher up the pitch. And if you can create a turnover, then you are creating a 3-on-2 situation, which will be interesting to see if West Ham try and employ that tactic. Let's start with the right-hand side. Jarrod Bowen. Again, I thought it was an improvement, to be fair, against Sheffield United. I know we talk about his decisiveness in front of goal, but I personally feel that improved fluidity in terms of working with the front three is better. I think he works better, personally, in a wing-back system where he's got someone on the right-hand side to do the defensive duties. Yes, of course, West Ham revert to a 5-4-1, but it does allow Bowen to receive the ball a little bit further up the pitch if West Ham break in transition. You look at the threat that he can offer against someone like an Eric Dyer. It's phenomenal, to be fair. I think even if he can get to the byline, stretch him, cause them issues, force them out of play, and West Ham introduce the likes of Souček or Jesse Lingard in the box, then West Ham will get chances in this game. We have to use the directness of someone like a Jarrod Bowen and the ability of Said Benrahma to beat a man and the problems that they can cause to this Tottenham defence in order to create those chances. West Ham will not get the chances from sitting deep in this game. Will not happen, in my opinion, from transition. Mourinho is very, very switched on in terms of that. I don't think he's going to progress the fullbacks either. So it will make it difficult for West Ham to break them down if we win the ball in our own box or in and around there. Let's talk about centre forward, Jesse Lingard. Yeah, listen, I think he's been fantastic since he's joined us. I think apart from the Fulham game, which I think everyone had a bit of a down day on, I thought he was fantastic against Aston Villa. Really impressed me against Sheffield United purely because of his ability to pick the ball up in deep areas, carry, transition, play in beyond, offer another option, draw defences. Everything that West Ham, I think, need in this type of game, I think Lingard offers. Touched on as well the fact that Tottenham asked their pivots to sit in that very, very low block and they vacate space just in front of that back four. Perfect for Lingard. Perfect for a false nine, particularly if you can progress the two players either side of Lingard. And I feel Lingard's movement generally, his intelligence, if West Ham commit enough men forward and ask enough questions of Tottenham, Lingard will have chances in this game. I feel like he's clinical enough, to be fair to him. I think that, you see particularly against Aston Villa. I know we could talk about Emi Martinez and the dodgy goalkeeping situation, but I think him getting into those correct positions is exactly what West Ham need. Because, for example, if we are in that low block and we aren't getting further enough up the pitch and we are struggling to create, then if we are in transition, someone like Lingard will have enough intelligence to find those spaces and test Lloris, and it's exactly what West Ham need to do. It's a different type of game for West Ham. It's not in a front three where there's a lack of height, and the way that we have to play, we have to progress as a front three and possibly as the wing backs and possibly push a little bit higher in terms of the defence and squeeze Tottenham and cause them a few issues. We can't look to afford a Mickey Antonio situation where he's gathering the ball and players are playing in behind purely because we don't have those type of players. But you feel that the width that's offered with the wing backs in Vladimir Soufal and Ben Johnson, we can isolate Tottenham's back two at times and even their pivot. And I think we can cause this team a lot of issues. I would hope that we do so. I will touch on it in the tactical breakdown, don't fear. Let's get into the Tottenham team. Listen, Tottenham, they won midweek, Europa League. It was a good-ish performance. There were some good goals in there. Obviously, Harry Kane got his goal. Harry Kane didn't get his goal. He was rested, in fact. Gareth Bale got his goal. Lucas Moura got a fantastic goal as well. So you can't write Tottenham off in an attacking sense because of the talent that they have. I think there is a bit of a disjointedness between what Mourinho wants from this side and what they're actually portraying. There's some things in there that I feel like possibly the coaching, that he's not asking them to do certain things and they're therefore not doing it. He tries to sit a little bit deeper, soak it up, transition through the midfield, but I'm not sure he has the personnel to do it either. It's all a little bit disjointed, but let's make it perfectly clear. If West Ham are caught in the press and Tottenham can get in transition, they absolutely have the ability, the freedom as well to hurt West Ham. That would be my concern. And listen, as good as I think Craig Dawson has been, I don't want him being isolated against a Heung-min Son or a Harry Kane. So we have to nullify and negate those situations as much as possible in this game. So let's start with the Tottenham predicted 11. Hugo Lloris in goal. Made a brilliant save actually midweek, but I feel like he's been culpable probably of a few mistakes this season. I think from set pieces, this is where West Ham really need to hurt Lloris and hurt this Tottenham defence because they don't look organised at times. Like I touched on, the squeeze you see sometimes with these back fours, if they're not squeezing as a back four or there isn't that sort of intonation of the midfield to sit in or cover those spaces, they can be caught. And I think I've watched the Tottenham Fulham game, and to be fair, I think Fulham played it perfectly, creating the width, forcing them out of position. So from set pieces, again, there is a vulnerability. You look at someone like a Craig Dawson, Thomas Souček, Declan Rice, Issa Diop now as well. West Ham have got options from there. The quality of the delivery from Aaron Creswell, you feel that West Ham can hurt them there, cause them issues. And I think it will suit West Ham if West Ham can get an early goal in this game. Again, you're asking Tottenham to try and press up, and I'm not convinced Tottenham as a side are willing to commit that men forward. And when they do, there's a lot of defensive. There's a lack of organisation there that West Ham can exploit, and it will benefit us. So I think first goal in this game for West Ham is crucial. Let's put someone like Hugo Lloris under significant pressure and force him into a couple of mistakes. Right back, I believe, will be Japhet Tanganga. The reason why, there was a significant injury, I think, to Serge Aurier, who's normally the first choice. Matt Doherty, he's not been relied on as much by Jose Mourinho, and possibly haven't watched enough Tottenham to sit here and confirm whether he's been a poor player or not. But you'd feel that he's not what Tottenham need. I think defensively there are lapses in there in terms of positioning. But Japhet Tanganga is ultimately a centre-back. I think he did well against Manchester City one-on-one. You can't rule it out. I think his aerial ability could cause someone like a Saïd Benrahma issues. If West Ham try and play long ball, I don't think we will. I think we'll transition as a team and play an open play, in which case I believe Benrahma can cause him a few issues. I touched on it earlier. I think Tottenham's probably hesitant to push forward these fullbacks. Ben Davies and Tanganga, not really naturally athletic, not having the ability to create wide spaces and overloads in the wide areas. Probably suits West Ham in a defensive sense. In an attacking sense for West Ham, Again, position is probably very, very good. So you will have to commit a Ben Johnson forward if you are going to create an overload and force Tanganga out of position. I think we can do it. But like I say, it's all about being brave in this game. Centre-backs. Right-hand side centre-back for Tottenham will be Davinson Sanchez, I believe. I don't believe either him or Eric Dyer are that great as centre-backs in terms of their composure. I think their athleticism is lacking at times. I think the organisation, the communication between the two is what is their undoing. I think physically they're good. Yeah, they're very strong as players. I know I've just said that, and I know Gundogan put Davinson Sanchez on his face last week, but arguably, I think they're very aggressive in terms of the central press. When they go and try and win the ball, they'll do it individually. And Mourinho will probably ask Højbjerg to sit a little bit deeper and cover that space. So again, I think West Ham need to not act to their strengths. And their strengths are playing the long ball, playing into the air. Again, where West Ham, we're going to have a bit of vulnerability there. And you can't play into the air with someone like Lingard. I am convinced that we are not going to play like that because of the way we played against Sheffield United. We are going to play to feet. And in that instance, then you're asking someone, if we sit with a false nine, by the way, and Davinson Sanchez or Eric Dyer are asked to go and press and get out into that space, then they are going to vacate space naturally. And if West Ham can get numbers in and around, then naturally we'll cause them problems and we'll be able to get in behind very easily. And that's where a lot of the myth of the Tottenham defence, in terms of earlier in the season being fantastic, was only fantastic because they were committing midfielders into the defence. When they are just a defence as a back four, they can be hit and they are vulnerable. Let's talk about Eric Dyer. Listen, I think there was a conversation a few years ago about Dyer or Rice. I think that's been put to bed. I think, to be fair, I think Dyer moving to centre-backs definitely put it to bed. He's good in the air, Eric Dyer. He is aggressive. I think there's a mistake in him, if I'm honest. I think if West Ham, particularly with Jarrod Bowen and his pace, can cause him nightmares. The way that the two centre-backs for Tottenham split, again, is nightmares if there are mistakes or West Ham can win the ball high in turnover. Then again, you're asking someone like an Eric Dyer or Sanchez to cover one another. I'm not convinced they've got the athleticism to do so. Again, like I touched on, let's not play into these players' strengths, which is in the air where they are aggressive. Jarrod Bowen is not going to win a ball against Eric Dyer. But what Jarrod Bowen will do is get in behind, be direct, force him out of position, and West Ham can hurt this Tottenham defence. And that's exactly what we need to do. Use the mobility, use the directness, play in central areas, force them out and commit the wing-backs. That's exactly what I want to see from West Ham in this game. But he does have a mistake in him, and I'd be interested to see that little battle between him and Jarrod Bowen. And if Bowen can play central like he has shown, particularly in the 3-4-3, then again, I expect him to cause issues for him and West Ham to create chances. Left back, this is a massive loss for Tottenham, by the way. Ben Davies in for Sergio Reguilon. I think when they play the 3-4-3, plays on the left-hand side centre-back, benefits him because he's not the most athletic. Again, I think he can get caught out in possession. I think Reguilon offers something going forward that Ben Davies can't. The overlaps, the underlaps, the delivery. There's so many elements to Reguilon's game that they're losing, and they lose it from an offensive sense. And I think it actually benefits someone like a Heung-min Son having a Reguilon on that left-hand side and clearly Harry Kane, because they can play in those central areas and almost create a front two. I think in this system where they're not committing the fullbacks as far and they're not creating the width and they're not having those options in wide areas to pass the ball out and break defensive lines, it's much easier for West Ham. Equally, you look at that right-hand side, like I've touched on, Jarrod Bowen and Vladimir Soufal. And we know Soufal has got the intention to get to the byline and can create decent deliveries into the box. I've touched on the aerial threat, but just that overload in the wide areas is going to force someone like a Ben Davies out. Equally, if we catch Tottenham out of possession and we ask someone like an Ndombele to get back in that space that Davies has left, because Davies will press individually, as will Tanganga. This is why committing numbers forward is the way that West Ham win this game, because Mourinho's asking them to go and press. And if for whatever reason that midfielder isn't back in shape or that centre-back hasn't moved over enough, there's space vacated, it becomes just a generic back four that can be torn apart. So I would like to see West Ham put pressure on him. I think offensively it benefits us, like I've touched on, and it forces Heung-min Son to play a little bit more in advanced roles, more in that centre-forward position. Let's talk about centre defensive midfielders. This for me has been probably one of their standout players this season. It is Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg. Højbjerg is a brilliant player in terms of his defensive awareness, his ability to play between the lines, his technical ability, the protection he offers to the centre-backs. I know he made a mistake against Gundogan. It was a little bit soft, to be fair. But I think in terms of an offensive sense, he wants to get Tottenham on the ball and use their attacking midfield players that aren't really naturally attacking midfield players. Let's be honest, I think Moura's converted from a right right winger at times. I think Heung-min Son's more of a centre forward, to be fair. Harry Kane, very, very similar. So Højbjerg actually is, although albeit a pivot, is someone that can create for Tottenham and start that transition and start that phase of play where they can force West Ham out of position. So I want to see West Ham put pressure on him, make it difficult for Højbjerg to play into those areas and allow Tottenham to pick up those spaces and ask questions of West Ham, because I feel that if Tottenham can't play through West Ham, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to create it in wide areas. They're going to rely on a mistake for West Ham. So we can negate them in that sense. And we have to press from the front foot. But nonetheless, he's a fantastic player. I think he'll sit between the lines as well when someone like Davinson Sanchez goes and presses on that right-hand side. Again, they need that. But it doesn't mean we can't catch them out of possession. Like I touched on earlier, Ndombele and Højbjerg will press and they'll try and squeeze West Ham. They'll try and squeeze in a 5. Fine, no problem. But West Ham can beat that press, The deliveries of someone like an Aaron Creswell. If West Ham use or someone like a Jared Bowen is more on that line of that 5-4-1 in a defensive shape, then again, there are options there for West Ham to play into the lines and play and force the issues for the defence and try and force them out of position. So there are options in this game, 100%. And I think there is a vulnerability from Tottenham in transition because of the way that they push their 2 centre midfielders up. And listen, as good as Højbjerg has been this season, I'm not saying I don't think he's the most athletic player. There's not a lot of natural pace there. He relies on his intelligence on the ball, his passing range, to be fair, in the final third and the defensive third. For me, he's one of their best players. If we can negate him, I think we can get a good result in this game. Ndombele, the switch to pivot probably doesn't work for them. I'm obviously not too worried about that. I think he's the more natural of the ball carrier. I think that's probably why they've put him in there instead of Winks. There is a bit of an impetus on Spurs, particularly in this Mourinho side, to try and press teams a little bit more and create a bit more. And you can see that. I think we saw that against Everton as well, in the way that I'm not saying they were gung-ho necessarily, but trying to commit men forward. So Ndombele, albeit in a pivot role, he's going to be asked to probably progress with the ball. And listen, his ball carrying's brilliant. I think him technically on the ball, he can beat the press. That would be my concern. That's why I feel like West Ham should put a lot of pressure on Højbjerg, because I think Ndombele, if you go and press him, you can vacate space. And I don't want to ask questions of Souček to go and press Ndombele. So I think if we can force Ndombele as far back into his own half or as deep as we can, he can't affect things. But if he forces anywhere into that kind of in and around the box or possibly just outside the box, then he will ask West Ham questions, and he has got the ability to beat them, man. The genuine quality to force West Ham out of position. Is he going to get in? But is he going to go on beyond the lines of West Ham's back 3? No, he won't. He'll sit in those positions. But I think if West Ham can nullify him from the front, then that's where a lot of Tottenham's play will break down, and they're not going to commit the wing backs. There's going to be a lack of width here. A lot of things will be central. They'll be relying on mistakes or West Ham to press too high. Right hand side, the rumour tells me that this guy's going to start typically always against West Ham. Gareth Bale, interesting player, obviously world class in his prime. He's playing on the right hand side. He's coming in on the left. Again, he's got quality from range. We know we can beat him, man. He's got fantastic feet. That would be my issue. He's going to need protection. I think question 4, Declan Rice down that side. Can he get to Gareth Bale enough? Can he force him into deeper areas? If Gareth Bale tries to occupy wide areas, again, I think West Ham can cover it with somebody like a Ben Johnson. I'm not saying man for man, who's the better player, but I'm saying positionally. I think Ben Johnson's very, very good one-on-one anyway. So you're forcing him into those deep areas, and that's where you need to have Gareth Bale. I think, although he's adapted his game and technically, clearly he's improved at his time at Real Madrid and obviously coming back to the Premier League, I think he's lost that yard of pace and he's not as direct, and he's not even playing on the left-hand side where he can get to the byline. So I think you can force someone like a Gareth Bale into those central areas. There will always be that threat in terms of long-range shots, but you feel that West Ham in a back 5 at times with a back 4, if we tuck in someone like a Bowen or a Ben Rama, then technically speaking, you feel that West Ham have got enough to deal with him and to negate that threat. But I can't say on recorded video that he's never going to be a threat, because he is. Let's get to the centre attacking midfielder in Lucas Moura. Interestingly, I know a lot of Tottenham fans are kind of up and down about Moura, and he scored a brilliant goal the other day. Where's his threats lie? Again, I think the problem with this Tottenham side, generally speaking, is they're coming into these central pockets and they're really asking just to come into those central areas and play with their back to goal. And none of these players suit that style of play. Gareth Bale is a player that likes to get to the byline. Lucas Moura's traditionally played as a winger. Heung-min Son wants to play on the shoulder. They haven't really got that 10. They miss Lo Celso hugely. They probably miss Ndombele in the 10 role as well. So again, it suits to our strengths. But you can't make a mistake against these guys. And that's the issue. That's why West Ham have to defend from the front foot, really and truthfully. Because you allow someone like a Moura to get into space, then you're asking someone like the West Ham defenders to push and get to him. And that's not where we want it, because that is a trigger point for Spurs to commit Heung-min Son forward and Harry Kane forward. And we know their intelligence in terms of playing on the shoulder at times. So we can't afford that to happen. I think we need a lot of defensive discipline from Rice and Souček in this game. For someone like a Lucas Moura with his back to goal, you're going to make it hard for him to hurt you. The minute Tottenham can get in transition, Lucas Moura has got the pace and the dribbling ability to get past the man and create. That's the type of scenario that West Ham we don't want. I think that's what we saw against them the first time out when we pressed too high. And you're playing to your strengths and you're playing to their strengths. So don't play to the strengths. Keep a low block if you need it and progress when you've got the chance. And when Tottenham are in that defensive shape and you can commit men forward, you're making it very, very hard for them to transition effectively from deep, which, albeit, like I said, I think they'll struggle to do so, but they have got the men to carry the ball over long distances. So it will be a dilemma, something we can't switch off from. But you feel that if West Ham are in a defensive shape, we can deal with someone like a Lucas Moura. This guy is the danger man. The next two are the danger men. It's Heung-min Son. I've put left-sided. Naturally, probably in the press, he'll sit there. But I think in terms of an attacking shape, he'll play on the shoulder. He's their number 9 for me. If you ever watch Tottenham play, he's the guy that will play on the shoulder. It suits him. He's got the pace. He's got the intelligence. He's got the finishing ability, the composure in front of goal. That's the man that we cannot afford to get in behind that West Ham defensive shape. Now, the only way you do that is you prevent Tottenham from getting the ball in possession in the final third, which I believe West Ham, in terms of a defensive shape, have got the ability to do so. Again, transition, he's frightening, but he does massively rely. And all of these players, by the way, it's him, Bale, Lucas Moura, rely on Harry Kane's quality in that 10 role that he can play and drop into. And that's why Mourinho allows him to go into those positions, because ultimately he's the player that can make that pass or find that vision in behind for Heung-min Son to get him beyond defences. So it is that partnership that West Ham need to be wary of. It is that player in Harry Kane that West Ham need to be wary of. I think aerially, again, it will suit West Ham naturally. Of course it will. There is a lack of aerial threat probably from all three of those attacking midfield players. I think in terms of a defensive shape, interestingly enough, the way that they play, they don't tuck in like a Jarrod Bowen has done or a Pablo Fornals in the past. They're a little bit central. They're a little bit inverted. They concede the width, which I find odd because he's allowed his left back to go and press. But then he'll say to Heung-min Son, just sit in the centre. And maybe he doesn't trust him in terms of that responsibility. But it does vacate space, but it does naturally mean that if they win the ball on the edge of their box and they've got the players to move forward with it, I think that's probably more what Mourinho's thinking is in these types of games. But you look at Bale, possibly down that right-hand side, is he going to offer too much defensive solidity to somebody like a Tanganga? Probably not. Again, that's why West Ham should create overloads in these areas. And equally, by committing men forward in that final third, then you're actually taking Bale out of the game, because whilst it almost feels like a lazy commitment from Heung-min Son or Bale to go and press and cover the wide areas, probably because they're not told to do so, you are actually naturally asking them to go and press the wide areas to try and win the ball. And again, it suits West Ham naturally. Harry Kane will play in that shape, by the way, a little bit deeper. So he won't be sitting on the line. And of course, we know that the lack of pace, probably that he's adopted through injuries, is a benefit to West Ham. So without further ado, let's talk about this man. Someone brought up a horrific stat to me yesterday saying that he scored, I think it's 11 goals in 14 games against West Ham. And I hope tomorrow is the day that we break it. It's Harry Kane. Again, it's a tough one for me as a West Ham fan. I can't stand him as a football fan. In general, he's a fantastic player, isn't he? And what is probably more important to remember in this type of game is how dependent Tottenham Hotspur are on him and how much quality that he has. Because without Harry Kane, that kind of gap or that creativity that Tottenham can create and force men forward and break defensive lines vanishes. And you'd never have said a couple of years ago, can Harry Kane drop as a number 9? Or why would you ask him to drop as a number 9, pick the ball up and allow the likes of Heung-min Son to get him beyond? And that has changed from the way that Mauricio Pochettino had the 4-2-3-1 to the way that Mourinho's employing the 4-2-3-1. And they're almost at times losing that player or their number 9 to try and create space in deeper areas, pick up the ball and play between the lines. And this is when I talked to you about Spurs not having that creativity or that natural player to break lines or play between them in the way that, a bit hesitant to say, but a Lingard will play between the lines and try and create something, and West Ham will create movement. It doesn't really happen in this Tottenham side. They're based on transition. Harry Kane's the guy that makes the difference in this game. The worst thing about someone like Harry Kane is the fact that if Tottenham do break the lines, for whatever reason, possibly if Heung-min Son keeps the width a little bit better, if Bale keeps the width a little bit better, and they stretch West Ham and they can get into that final third, he worries me because albeit whilst he's very, very good in almost a 10 role, he's fantastic in a 9 role. He's got really good intelligence in front of goal. We know that from his goal scoring record on top of his finishing ability, his heading ability, his aerial threat. we can't afford Tottenham to have deliveries either from wide areas. I mean, you'd kind of naturally be more inclined to think that they're not going to do that. They're going to try and play through West Ham. Can they do that without Harry Kane? I think it would be a lot tougher. With Harry Kane, again, it's problematic. And I think they can throw another man almost in that midfield. I touched on Højbjerg and on Dembele playing a bit further up. They can almost have like a three-man midfield with a false nine in Heung-min Son, or what it feels like at times. And again, the reason why that's good for West Ham, playing that false nine, the reason why teams play the false nine is because it forces you out of that position. And there's that kind of, you feel there's that security that everything's in front of you. The problem is with Tottenham, the minute they can get that ball particularly in front of you, Heung-min Son's willing to go in behind, Gareth Bale possibly as well, Lucas Moura. That's why West Ham need to try and nullify Harry Kane. How you do it, I'm not sure. I've touched on pressing from the front three. I think that's important, particularly if they're not going to progress the fullbacks. Then naturally you feel that Bowen could play a little bit more inverted. Kane keeps coming out to that left-hand side at times. So maybe put pressure on him and force him into the deep areas where he can't hurt teams as much. But again, you know, it's a problem that I'm not sure West Ham can solve. The minute you go and progress a Souček and ask him to go and press Harry Kane in deep areas, then Lucas Moura will vacate that. That's what it's all based on. That's the whole premise of Tottenham's creativity without the width in their game. So, yeah, I don't want to talk about too much, but it is a problem. It is a problem. I'm not sure how you negate that. And in front of goal, he's brilliant. So, I mean, West Ham are going to have to be massively switched on. You feel in the air, maybe West Ham can deal with it. A back three, Craig Dawson's very good in the air. Can cause him a few issues there, which I'm encouraged about. But that is my Tottenham predicted 11. In terms of a score prediction, I will try and keep these quite concise, but actually end up talking for 35 minutes. But if you're this far, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the West Ham Way if you're new. In terms of a score prediction, I'm going to go... I kind of flitted between it. I think 1-1. I went 2-1. And I would love West Ham to win this game. And there's no reason why we can't win this game. But I feel like we're going to be a bit cagey. And if we sit behind, it could be a slightly boring game. I think people will say we're not creating enough. It'll be frustrating. I think Moyes wants the wing-back system because he can progress a little bit better. And that's encouraging for me. I think if we can do that against Tottenham, then we can hurt them. But then you are setting traps for them to hit you in transition. So I think from a set piece, West Ham will get something, 100%. I worry about Tottenham if West Ham are possibly 1-0 up and we sit deep for long periods of the game when we get to the 80th minute and then they score or they get a bit of space or a bit of magic. That's what worries me. Generally speaking, if West Ham progress the fullbacks, I think we win 2-1. I think we can even negate them and possibly get a clean sheet. But I'm just worried that we're not going to play how I would like us to play. But listen, I was going to say a point against Spurs is a good point. But I feel like in the form that we're in and the team that we have, we should be going for the 3. For me, there's no excuse here. Stop. And what I will say as a final word, we need to stop playing the name. We need to stop playing Tottenham, United, City. Play the team in front of you. City are the best team in the league by quite a bit. And the way that we'll play against them it'll be incredibly tough for us. But this is a game of genuine opportunities. This is a game that, in the past you say, oh, it's Tottenham. But realistically, there's so many gaps and so many possible errors and fragilities in this Spurs side that we need to capitalise on it. And we will look back at this game. And if we say, even if it is a draw or we can see, we'll say missed opportunity. That's my only worry. But fingers crossed this and we get the job done. I love beating Tottenham. We love getting points against Tottenham. So let's bring it on. I'm buzzing for it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want the actual team news, the actual 11s, I'm going to leave the link to X and Dave West Ham Way Patreon account. So you can go on there, you subscribe. I think it's £5 a month. And you get all of the latest news and behind the scenes stuff. And you get the team news on the morning, I believe, before the game. So you can watch this and then go straight over there, pay your £5, and then you'll get the actual news. So great stuff from them. Obviously, they've got their podcast as well. The website's now live. So you've got loads of great writers on there. So check that out. The YouTube channel is on the website as well. So if you follow that, you won't miss a beat. But if you're new, like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. I've seen a lot of you. Some of you aren't subscribed and you're watching this. Can't have that, right? So make sure you drop a notification. You won't miss anything. I'm going to do a tactical breakdown live tomorrow in the build up to this Spurs game. I'm just going to get my stuff ready for it. But I think you've kind of got an intonation about what it could be. We'll do it. I said we'll do it at 11 o'clock in the build up. We'll have the watch along from 12 o'clock. Obviously the game, you get your post match from me. No post match this week from an opposition fan. Shock horror. There was someone in mind, but I've decided I'm going to leave it. Because of, I think, personal circumstances with them. So we'll just leave that for now. I think you will get one against Manchester City next week with a familiar face that I'm sure you'll be encouraged to see. And until next time, take care.